Jaron Boots Ennis breaks his silence, gives his first words regarding the accusation that he is ducking, or that he ducked, Vergil Ortiz. In this video, that's what I'm gonna break down, give you my thoughts on the matter. Jaron Boots Ennis, man. For somebody who's insanely talented, you hate to see the position he's currently in. Now, I made a full-fledged unpacked video. I really recommend that you watch that video and then come back to this video, because my videos, when they're regarding a certain subject, they're almost like mini movies. So this is the sequel. You kind of need to watch the first one to be caught up. So make sure you guys check out that unpacked video. Very detailed stuff. Listen, in a world full of quick clickbait in the game of boxing, on my channel, we do stuff differently, you know, and I'm giving you guys thought-provoking stuff, like things you can like feast on and think about in the boxing game. So Jaron is in a bad position because the world believes he ducked Vergil Ortiz. And just being 100% honest, like I always am, and being transparent, it's hard to argue in defense of Jaron Ennis. Now, in the unpacked video, again, you guys really should watch it, but I'll give you a little cliff note, a little nugget, a little Easter egg, if you will. I stated that if Ennis chooses to stay at his current weight class, that's not really the issue here, right? Because if I was the fighter or managing a fighter, ain't nobody gonna tell me or my fighter when it's time to move up and what situation and force my hand into anything. I don't believe in that. Ain't nobody gonna force my hand to do anything, right? So I could totally respect if Boots chose to stay at welterweight, because there was a point in time where he said he wanted to stay at welterweight, become undisputed. No problem. The problem lies when Eddie Hearn and Jaron Ennis' team and his fans also, because you got to throw the fans in there, when they act as if this is a fight with Vergil Ortiz at 54 that they're interested in, and you drag the fans into it with public negotiations. You have reporters coming out saying that they verbally agreed, and then all for it to crumble with one of the most elementary things that one could discuss for a fight negotiation. It looks pretty stupid and it looks pretty bad, and you can't really blame the guy who's an interim champion in the weight class at 154, which is Vergil Ortiz, when it was pretty obvious that in 2025, if they were to fight, the fight would likely need to be at 154, right? Anyone who suggests anything else either A, is dumb, B, doesn't know enough about boxing, C, they're dumb again, right? Because Vergil Ortiz had health complications and basically put himself in the hospital trying to make welterweight years ago. So it wouldn't even be safe, nor a fight that I would even want to see, because I don't prefer to see two fighters fight and one person has some kind of clear disadvantage, or their weight drained, or, you know, there's some kind of ailment. I want to see people fight, and I want to see who's the best out of two people at their best, preferably, right? Makes all the sense in the world to me. I don't want to see a guy who, you know, got a hole in his lung or fluid in his lungs or something, and one eye fighting a guy with two eyes. It just doesn't make sense. So anybody with the brain would know that the fight would be pitched for 154. So it's really disingenuous to lag, wait, say you're in negotiations, and then at the 11th hour, when it looks like you're close to signing, and then the other opposing teams going over the fine details with a fine-tooth comb, and then you're like, hey, this fight got to be at welterweight. I forgot to tell you. I mean, it just looks dumb. Now, Vergil Ortiz says, quote, I seen the rumors on social media just like y'all. Correction, they're not rumors. They're actual reports from people who talk to other people. So it's not really a rumor. I think of, he said, she said, whispered in someone's ear. That's more or less what a rumor is. This ain't a rumor. This is, you have reporters who talk to sources and they said that the sticking point was the weight class, right? So it's not really, it's kind of beyond the rumor. He says, I seen the rumors on social media just like y'all did. As far as the fight with me and Vergil, he spelled his name wrong. I was unaware that alleged negotiations was being made on my end from here on out. If it didn't come from me and me only, don't believe it. And I will address if I'm staying at 147 or moving up to 154 at a later date and time. Now, sometimes saying less is more. And I think Jaron Ennis, I get it. You're seeing criticisms of you, but I think this is one of those times where he probably shouldn't have said anything, because for me, I feel like if you're going to pop out, really pop out. That's where I'm from. Don't pop out like you're addressing the claims and then you glaze over them, or you don't really even address the main issue. So just the lasting message from the final sentence, I will address if I'm staying at 147 or moving up to 54 at a later date and time. What does that even mean? Like, why don't you address it now if the criticism is now? That just sounds very weird to me. And furthermore, I feel like we know the answer is likely you're staying at welterweight, or you're not ready. Either way, you're not ready to move up to 54 to fight Vergil Ortiz straight away. That's what it appears, right? So you saying I'll address it at a later time, we kind of know the answer, because if you were going to move up to 54, then why wouldn't you just fight Vergil Ortiz unless you and your team didn't feel you wanted to take that fight straight away at 54, right? But again, it could all be reasonable if you just said that from the beginning and nobody got their hopes up, right? So I don't really feel like this addressed anything. And as far as the fighter saying, I hate when fighters do this. They say, basically, don't trust my team. So let's say Boots Ennis, that's your trainer, your father, your dad, whatever, right? When he does other interviews and he says, my son will beat Terrence Crawford or beat Vergil Ortiz, we're supposed to believe what he said in that interview, right? But then when there's information that comes out and you're saying you're not in the loop, now we can't believe your team. You can't pick and choose and have it both ways. Like, if you have an attorney or a lawyer and then you're like, yeah, my lawyer will answer all the questions. And then you have your lawyer answering questions, and then the first time it doesn't make you look good, something your lawyer said, and you're like, nah, if it didn't come from me, it don't count. But it counted all those other times when it didn't come from you. You guys get what I'm saying? That don't make sense. And again, you can't have it both ways. You can't say your team or your dad is a credible source when he's saying, hey, we're going to knock out Karen Chukadasian in the rematch. But then randomly, when negotiations are being had, you're saying, like, the whole thing was confusing. He said he's seen the rumors and he was unaware that alleged negotiations were being had. I mean, what's going on here, bro? So everybody's reporting that there's a verbal agreement, and you're saying you're unaware that there were negotiations going on your behalf. I mean, that don't really sound believable. Everybody was talking about this fight and reporting it for February 22nd, and you had no concept of, like, because if it was me and I was hearing through the media that X, Y, and Z was going on, I would reach out to my team like, yo, what are they talking about? Y'all ain't told me nothing about fighting Vergil Ortiz or 54, blah, 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 right? So to me, the whole scenario sounds about weird, and it don't really make sense like I said, believe my team, 6 days a week, but then 1 day a week when the news is not favorable from your team and how things are being negotiated, then you're saying, hey, if it didn't come from me, don't believe it. Like, it doesn't really work like that. And speaking of team, Eddie Hearn, things have been disastrous for Jaron Ennis since he teamed up with Eddie Hearn. And the funny thing is, your boy Ego had doubts from day one, and people said I was hating. When the day they announced that Jaron Ennis left his situation where he was on PBC cards, he wasn't signed to PBC, but he was on their cards, and he was linked with like Steven Espinoza and Showtime, and he signed with Eddie Hearn. I'm like, I don't really understand the direction. Like, Eddie Hearn hasn't really made an American star to this point. So what's Eddie Hearn going to really do with him? And these were my questions. And you guys could check the videos. They're still up. I did live streams the day Jaron Ennis signed, when it was announced that he had signed to Rematch Room. And I had major questions about this marriage and this partnership and what Eddie was going to be able to provide. So far, what has Eddie provided? Cody Crowley fight that got canceled. So he never really fought Cody Crowley. Then he fights a guy that Terrence Crawford laid out with single shots and knocked unconscious, and Crawford beat him better, which was David Avanesian, right? So Crawford laid him out in the ring. David Avocado, surrendered or whatever in between mid-round. So for a fight in Philly with all these crowds and stuff like that, I feel like it was anticlimactic. I know somebody that actually went to it. It's just anticlimactic when it ends like that. I think people, they got a bloodlust and they're thirsty for blood, and they wanted more. They wanted to see more. Right when things started to heat up, the fight was over in a less than traditional way. And people said Jaron Ennis got hit too much. Then he has this Brian Norman deal, another fight that falls apart. So since being with Eddie Hearn, the Cody Crowley fight, that went away. That's not really their fault, but it happened under their watch, right? You had a unwanted fight with David Avocado. Then you had like these negotiations allegedly with Barrios, Stanionis, and most notably Brian Norman. And then the Brian Norman fight looked like it was kind of close, and then 11th hour falls apart. Now you have Vergil Ortiz, and they're like, this is going to be the biggest card in February and the biggest boxing card ever. And people are hyped and geeked for this fight. And the 11th hour, the fight falls apart over weight, which was something that could have, if weight was going to prevent this fight from happening, that should have been decided very early on. And then everybody goes their separate ways and look for the other options. We're pushing it towards, it actually is December as of me recording the video. So it's December and you're trying to do this February card. If Jaron didn't want to move up to 54, that's something that should have been noted. Like, you don't do like it just looks so backhanded, people. It looks so backhanded because here's the deal is you verbally agree and then you spring something new in the contract, knowing Vergil Ortiz's side is going to see it and be like, yo, what? This contract, there must be a mistake. There's a clerical error. It says that the fight's going to be contested at 47. My client can't make 147. Oh, fight over. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. The old switcheroo. And that's what's happening. You got a lot of pride. People don't want to admit defeat. People don't want to look, cowardly. So people, they're not going to just say, oh, I turned down the fight because I'm not ready for it, or I need to acclimate to the weight. Nobody wants to look like that. So as far as Jaron Ennis, it doesn't look good because, he could say whatever and say, I didn't know if it doesn't come from me. But these are the people that you're employing. Whether it's your dad or Eddie Hearn, this is your team. You selected this team. It's not the other way around. It's not like this is the Viewers' Choice Awards and we, the fans, selected who was your manager and who was your promoter. You selected that. So if your team is not moving in accordance to how you want to be moved, or if it's making you look bad in the process, that's something you got to take up with your team. But as far as you have a known team that speak on your behalf all the time, and then when as soon as you're in like a negative light, you're saying, oh, you can't believe my team, I was unaware and blah, blah, blah. Like it doesn't work like that. If you got a team and that's your team, rock with the team, go down with the ship, you know? And if you have to clean house, then you got to clean house. But make no mistake about it, you chose this team. You chose Eddie Hearn, and you chose your dad and things like that. So if you're not in the loop, that sounds like a personal problem. For real. Because you should be in the loop with your career, and you should have that understanding that, yo, my promoter and my pops are negotiating in good faith, making me look good behind the scenes, and I'm willing to fight anybody. But you can't let the fight fizzle out and then say, oh, I'll address whether I'm staying at welterweight or moving to 54 at a later date. It's too late. Like, the fight is not happening. They're talking about Xander Zayas and other people stepping in to fight Vergil Ortiz. That's another issue, and I'll save that for another video. That looks bad because you got Xander Zayas. Yes, he's fought at 54. He already made the move, but he's very young. He hasn't fought anyone remotely close to a Vergil Ortiz. If he sits up here and takes this fight before a known name like Jaron Boots Ennis, who is probably older than Xander, and Xander said on social media that he had 1 hour to agree to this fight for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't want to go through Top Rank or something. I don't know. But he said he had 1 hour, and he said yes in the first minute. So that also looks bad, that you have somebody who's kind of behind you in terms of praise and younger and stuff like that, and they're accepting it no problems, and they haven't fought anyone remotely as good as Vergil Ortiz, and their team is possibly not holding them back. And then you, who've received a lot of praise, people have adored you for your gifts and being special and that Roy Jones isms that you've shown in the ring, and then the fight doesn't fall apart and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened. If it didn't come from me, it's not my fault. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. We unpack.